Our home, planet Earth. It's the only planet we know of where life doesn't just exist, it flourishes. And it's only possible because of the perfect balance of our atmosphere. Our planet's atmosphere acts like the glass in a greenhouse. It lets light from the sun through, then traps heat as it tries to leave. This balance of greenhouse gases helps make Earth a Goldilocks planet. Not too hot, not too cold. A miracle planet unique in our solar system. But human activities have upset this balance, burning fossil fuels like coal, oil and gas for energy, cutting down trees, producing waste, and over-intensive farming all increase the greenhouse gases in our atmosphere. It's like making the glass in a greenhouse thicker, trapping more heat and making our planet warmer. Since the Industrial Revolution, carbon dioxide in our atmosphere has increased by around 50%, and across the globe, average temperatures are now approaching 1.5 degrees Celsius compared to pre-industrial levels. There's no doubt in the scientific community that humans have created this change. You can see from this graph how often different temperatures occur in a year. This is what the temperatures were like from the 1950s to the 80s. But in this last decade, hot days have become more common. We still have cold days, but not as often. Extreme heat is becoming more frequent, and there are new hot temperatures appearing at the extreme end that humans have never experienced. Throughout the whole of modern human history, carbon dioxide levels have never been this high. In 1988, an international panel with prominent scientists from all over the world was established to review all of the science, the IPCC. The most recent IPCC report concluded that the existence of human-induced global warming is unequivocal. It has already caused significant environmental change around the world, and we are currently on track to warm the Earth by up to 3.5 degrees by the end of the century if we don't reduce our emission and commit to rapid action on climate change. Scientists consider 2 degrees of warming catastrophic, so this is not something we can risk. But it's not all bad news. In fact, we previously thought that the Earth might warm by up to 5 degrees, but we've made significant progress already to avoid the worst case scenario. 3.5 degrees would still be disastrous. But we are capable of making a difference if we continue putting pressure on our governments to limit warming to 1.5 degrees. So what does climate change actually look like? Hotter temperatures mean more heat waves that kill crops, livestock, and people. Warmer air also changes the patterns of evaporation and rainfall, contributing to longer droughts across most of Australia. Less rain and hotter days means an increased risk of fires, and when it does rain, it's more extreme, resulting in floods. Our oceans are also warming, which creates the energy for intense and longer-lasting storms and cyclones. It also means our sea levels are rising. In Australia, it's estimated by the Climate Council that the combined cost of extreme weather will reach $91 billion per year by 2050. And rising insurance costs and other things like expensive energy and food production have already had major contributions to increases in the cost of living. Already, because of climate change, some insurance agencies will not insure against damage caused by rising waters, floods, and bushfires because the risk is so high. In the Black Summer bushfires, almost 20% of all Australia's forests burnt. 33 people died, more than 3 billion animals were killed, 3,000 homes were destroyed, and months later, thousands of people were still displaced. Smoke from the fires circumnavigated the globe and contributed to a multi-year La Niña event. Smoke was estimated to have caused over 400 deaths and over 4,000 hospital admissions across the country. The Black Summer bushfires offer a sobering glimpse of our new normal in a climate-changing world. If carbon emissions continue to increase as projected, the climactic conditions of 2019 may be considered average by 2040 and exceptionally cool by 2060. Heat waves are silent killers because associated deaths are often attributed to other causes like heart attack or stroke, but they already kill more Australians than any other climate disaster. Extreme heat also increases the instances of mental health crises and domestic violence, which have a particularly negative impact on women. These are just a few examples of extreme weather already killing people, crops, and animals, with knock-on effects for whole species, ecosystems, our national security, infrastructure, economies, and livelihoods. The people most impacted by climate change have contributed the least to the problem. This includes people on lower incomes, indigenous communities, and our Pacific Island neighbours who are being affected first and worst. Experts around the world are considering what will happen as extreme weather events become more frequent and more severe. At what point do melting glaciers in the Himalayas cause the 1.4 billion people dependent on those glaciers for their drinking water to move? How many conflicts will occur in an already unstable region of the world? When will firefighters deem fighting bushfires an unacceptable risk? How much drought relief can we offer farmers if droughts become more frequent and more extreme? How many times do we rebuild after floods, fires, and storms? How many extreme weather events can our societies take before they start to break down? We are already at an unsafe level of global warming. Every fraction of a degree of warming that we can avoid reduces the risk we face in the future. One of the most concerning risks is that of triggering feedback loops in the natural world. For example, white ice reflects sunlight, cooling the planet. As ice melts due to climate change, that cooling no longer occurs, increasing the warming and melting more ice, which creates more warming, melting more ice, and so on. And then there's permafrost, frozen ground in and around the Arctic Circle that contains methane, a greenhouse gas far more potent than carbon dioxide. The world's permafrost holds the equivalent of more than double the carbon dioxide that humans have already released into our atmosphere. Scientists don't know for certain when these feedback loops will kick in or how they will play out, but every fraction of a degree we continue warming, the more likely this possibility becomes. There is no safe level of global warming. We must urgently reduce the emissions that are produced and also to absorb the excess emissions that are already in the atmosphere. UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres has said the next 18 months are essential for determining whether we exceed 1.5 degrees of warming. He said, "We do have a choice, creating tipping points for climate progress or careening to tipping points for climate disaster." To respond to this urgency, our best scientists have agreed that Australia must stop approving all new coal and gas projects and rapidly phase out existing fossil fuel infrastructure, introduce bold 2035 emissions targets, and reduce emissions across all sectors, particularly evolving our transport sector away from fuel and diesel vehicles. Right now, scientists, engineers, policymakers, businesses, and activists are working towards lowering greenhouse gas emissions. We have many solutions that, if implemented at speed and scale, could reduce our emissions in time and transform our society. Such a massive change can also bring jobs to communities that desperately need them. Burning coal, oil, and gas for energy is the largest contributor to global warming. Governments around the world give tax breaks and subsidies to fossil fuel companies, some of which are hard to track, but the International Monetary Fund estimates they are worth $7 trillion every year. But what if that same amount was invested in renewable energy and into support for workers and communities reliant on fossil fuel industries to make the transition to more sustainable economies? Renewables are increasingly the cheapest form of energy around the world. Combined with smart grids, batteries, and other forms of storage, renewable forms of energy could completely replace fossil fuels, if that's what we choose. According to the CSIRO, nuclear energy is at least twice as expensive as renewable power, even when considering its longer operating life. And nuclear reactors take at least 15 years to be built, which isn't fast enough for the emissions reductions we need in the next few years. This is not to mention the grave concerns communities have about radioactive nuclear waste. Innovations in farming and changes to land use can also play a significant role. Over half of Australia's methane emissions comes from agriculture. Planting trees and shrubs on agricultural land can help lower farms' emissions and pull carbon out of the atmosphere while also providing habitat for native species. Protecting remaining forests and grasslands and revegetating cleared land draws carbon out of the atmosphere and replenishes soils, which helps farmers in the future too. But planting trees to offset emissions can't be the only thing we do. We also need to address emissions at the source. Farms could be supported to increase their use of renewable power and to electrify their equipment, and new innovations in livestock feed can reduce the amount of methane animals produce. Our cities are full of hard, dense surfaces. This traps more heat from the sun and increases the risk of flash flooding. But greening surfaces and streetscapes with plants and trees cools the air and creates porous surfaces for water to drain into. Green roofs can reduce the amount of energy needed to cool a building and make city dwellers feel more closely connected to the natural world. By 2050, almost 70% of people will live in cities. So imagine the impact that greening our cities could bring: a cooler planet, cleaner air, ample shade, and even spaces for wildlife to return to. Transport emissions are Australia's second largest contributor to global warming after energy production. Business trips make Sydney to Melbourne one of the busiest flight paths in the world, and our cities are congested with traffic. Australia has more vehicles registered than people who are licensed to drive them. The number of electric vehicles on the road is rapidly increasing, but traditional petrol cars are still much more common. Increasingly, countries and vehicle manufacturers are phasing out petrol and diesel cars. Without stronger electric vehicle infrastructure and support for quicker transition to electric cars, Australia risks being left behind. Better bike infrastructure, public transport, and other measures to encourage walking and riding would reduce emissions and improve our health. These examples provide just a glimpse of the many inspiring solutions available right now to combat global warming. We're at a unique moment in time. Solutions are available, change is already underway, but we are not moving fast enough. If we continue with business as usual, the globe will continue to warm catastrophically, increasing the risk of triggering abrupt, dangerous, and irreversible changes to our planet. Every ton of emissions added to our atmosphere matters. New coal, oil, and gas projects are still being approved and subsidized with millions of dollars. But what could we achieve if that money was put towards fixing climate change? What if we made the same effort towards fighting global warming that was made towards winning World War II? What if we made the same effort as was made towards getting humans on the moon? What if we made the same effort as we did towards developing a vaccine for COVID-19? People can do incredible things when we choose to. The question is, what will we choose?
Save the environment!